Hi everyone, this is Yoon Jung Lee. I'm here to present the QI 102, how to improve with the model for the improvement. Through this presentation, I'm gonna cover 5 lessons. Lesson 1, an overview of the model for the improvements, setting on the aims, developing changes, lastly testing changes. Through the lesson 1, you are able to state the 3 fundamental questions that are basis of the model for the improvements, identify the process that make up the Plan, Do, Study, Act, which is the PDSA cycles, describe how our healthcare teams has used the model for the improvements to bring about improvements in a clinical setting. Finally, use the model for improvements to begin your own personal improvements project. The model for improvements begin with the 3 fundamental questions. What are we trying to accomplish? What's gonna be aim? How will we know the change is the improvement? This is the measure. And then our last question is, what change can we make that would result in the improvement? It's gonna be the changes you will test. And then last one is the cycles. PDSA cycles, Plan, Do, Study, Act cycles provide a mechanism to adjust the improvements idea as the project progresses. PDA cycles allow for rapid and frequent review of the data and then adjusting the test of changes based upon those findings. For example, if a new guideline that is meant to improve pneumonia care, if it's not working, PDSA cycles allow you to change the guideline quickly and test its efficacy rather than waiting until the end of the long study period. This section, let's talk about using the model for improvements to improve care. First things that we have to set an aim. Let's say, will improve our infection rate. This one is not good enough. The aim statement should be time specific and measurable, stating exactly how good, by when, for whom. Secondly, establish measures. So you need to feedback to know if a specific change actually leads to the improvement. And quantitative measure can often provide the best feedback. Third, identify changes. So how are we going to achieve your aim? Where do new ideas comes from? You can spark creative thinking in various ways, and there are tools that can help. First, testing changes. This is where the PDSA cycle portion of the model for improvements comes in. So by planning a test of changes, trying the plan, observing the result, and acting on what you learned, you will progressively move towards your aim. Finally, implement changes. After you have a change that results in improvement under many conditions, the logical next step is to implement. So meaning make the change a new standard process in one defined setting. Okay, this is your turn. So let's make a personal improvements project. Pick up something that is important to you. Secondly, high priority in your lives or work. However, it should be measurable and enough frequency so you can gauge the progress. Lesson 2, setting an aim. After presentation, you are able to state why it is important to set an aim statements at the start of an improvement project. Second, identify the key elements of an effective aim statement. Third, develop an effective aim statements for your own personal improvement project. The key elements of an aim statement. An aim statement is the answer to the first questions in the model for the improvement. What are we trying to accomplish? A good aim addressed, it is specific, measurable, and address these questions. How good, by when, for whom. If they say, we'll do better on test, I will lose a weight, I'm going to exercise more often, but there is no specific. How good, by when, who knows? We could try forever and never get there because it's not clear where there is. However, if this statement, I will weigh 160 pounds or less by February 1st, I'm going to run at least 10 miles per week by July 4th, this statement includes how good, by when, for whom. This is the example weak statements and strong statements. Weak statements, we aim to reduce the harm and improve patient safety for all of our internal and external customers. However, strong statements specific says by June of 2015, we will reduce the incidence of pressure ulcer in the critical care unit by 50%. So which statement, this statement includes the how good, by when, for whom, or what systems that include those questions. Yes, this is me. I'm a long distance runner. I love running, but I'm not that good. So I would like to run a full marathon in 4 hours. So my aim will be by March 6th, I'll be able to run 6.214 miles, which is 10K, in 56 minutes and 51 seconds. Lesson 3. After this presentation, you are able to explain why measurements is important in improvement. You are able to identify 3 kinds of measures. List some of the differences between improvements and academic research measurements. Explain the basic of displaying data from the improvements. Lastly, you are able to develop effective measures for your own personal improvement project. Why do we need measures? Measurements help answer the second questions in the model for the improvements. How will we know the change is an improvement? It is a common sense that without some types of feedback, we have no way of knowing whether the changes we are making are leading to improvement. In healthcare systems, measures usually provide the most useful form of feedback, such as hemoglobin A1C for diabetic patients. Quality improvements measurements different with research measurement. They're more like practical. So there's no effort to control bias, just gather enough data to inform the improvements and only collect data on 1 or 2 confounders as needed. There are 3 types of family of measures. One is the outcome measures. It is the ultimate measure. For example, hemoglobin A1C is the ultimate measure for a diabetic patient. Process measure is the part of step in the system. So let's say check the hemoglobin A1C twice a year. Is this one of the process measure? On the other hand, balancing measure is kind of a little confused. This one is that determine whether change designed to improve one part of the system are causing new problem in other part of the system. So let's say it's the number of the minutes spent with each diabetes patient. One patient has more spent time diabetes education than less spent time education. Is this the effect, the result of hemoglobin A1C? More like the balancing measures help teams monitor aspect of the system they don't want to damage accidentally. So now we have a lot of numbers. So what are you gonna do with them? IHI recommends that put together on the chart, as you see the chart. So run charts are a simple and effective way to determine whether the changes you are making are leading to improvements or not. Here's my personal improvements project again. So outcome measure will be I can run in 56 minutes and 51 seconds in 10K. It's ultimately my goal. Processing measure is how much I practice. More practice can reach my goal quickly. So how many minutes run per miles, how many days run a week is going to be my process measure. On the other hand, balancing measure is something like the feeling tired or a lot of school assignments can affect my practicing of running. So it can measure how tired is that time, scaled on 1 of 5. Lesson 4, developing changes. After presentation, you are able to state and use the 5 approaches to coming up with change. Explain how to use change concept to come up with good ideas to test. Identify some good changes to test for your own personal improvements project. How will you achieve your aim? It's going to be third questions in model for the improvements. What change can we make that will result in improvement? There are useful ways to develop changes. Number 1, critical thinking about the current system. Benchmarking. Benchmarking is comparing your own process to best practice can help you identify whether your own system falls short or not. Based on that analysis, you can develop idea for improving your performance. Using technology, creative thinking. Lastly, using change of concept, which is we'll talk about next slide. Here is a change concept from the API. API is the Associated in Progress Improvements, the same group of experts who brought IHI, the model for improvements, also created a list of change concepts. There's 72 of them. However, here's the concept down into the following 9 categories. So number 1, eliminate waste, which is the eliminate things that are not used, improve workflow, find and remove the bottlenecks, optimizing inventory, match inventory to predicted demand, enhance the producer-customer relationship, focus on the outcomes to the customer, change the work environment, take care of basics, manage time, reduce the startup time, manage variation, using standardization, create a formal process. Lastly, 8, design system to avoid mistake, use reminders. Lastly, focus on design of produce and services, offer products or services any place. Other methods to identify improvements in healthcare. Ask the front lines, they know better sometimes, or looking into the industries and enterprise. Another useful method to help you identify programs and generate ideas for improvements is a tool known as a cause and effect diagram, also known as a Ishikawa or fishbone diagram. Here's my turn, personal improvement project. So how will I achieve my aim? What change can I make that will result in an improvement? So I think about first, I will be able creative thinking to this problem. I'm going to think about obstacles which keeps me from running as much as I would like. The main obstacle is that I don't have a time to run frequently during weekdays. I need to leave around 6 a.m. to get work by 7 a.m. because my work time is 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Also, traffic is really bad. When I come back home, most likely 6 p.m. and I'm tired, I can't run. So I'm also do not have enough time during weekend due to catch up with my school assignments. So here's my idea for the changes I can try. Running each Friday, which is my day off, and Monday morning, which is my telehealth day, so I can run in the morning. Here's the last lesson, testing changes. After presentation, you are able to explain the important improvements work for conducting iterative small-scale tests of changes. Describe what happened during each stage of PDSA testing. Use a PDSA worksheet to plan and conduct a small test of changes for your own personal improvement project. Why is testing necessary? So once a team has a set aim, which is in lesson 2, developed measures to determine whether a change leads to the improvements, which was in the lesson 3, and come up with some good idea for changes, which was in lesson 4. The next step is to test the idea for a change. The PDSA cycle, Plan, Do, Study, Act, is a great way to test a change by planning it, trying the plan, observing the result, and acting on the learning from the result. Consider this. All improvements will require changes, but not all changes will result in improvement. Plan the test, including a plan for the collecting data. State the questions that you want to answer and make a prediction about what you think will happen. Develop a plan to test the change and ask these questions: who, what, when, where. Identify what data you will need to collect. Do. Run the test on small scale. Study. Analyze the result and compare them to your predictions. Act based on what you learned from the test, and then make a plan for your next step. Welcome to the act part of the PDSA cycles. After you have studied the result of the test, it's a time to apply what you've learned and test it again. We call this process in linking PDSA test cycle. Here is what links test cycles looks like. So tip for linking PDSA cycles, think ahead, start small, get started. Thank you. Here's our references.